the story of Abraham. We will be talking about how did God provided. The promise of God to Abraham. God made a promise to Abraham. He said, "I'm going to bless you. I'm going to build a nation through you, and you will have descendants as many of the stars in the sky, in multitude as many sand which is by the seashore." Abraham believed the promise, knowing that he and Sarah were too old to have a child. But he believed in God and trusted him. God kept his promise. When Abraham was 100 years old and Sarah was 19 years old, they had a child called Isaac, meaning laughter. Abraham's faith tested. Genesis chapter 22 verse 1-2 says that when Isaac was a teenager, God came to Abraham and said, "Take your son, your only son whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him as a burnt offering on the mountain I will show you." Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where God asks us to do something or go somewhere, but to our human brains and eyes, the demand does not make any sense because we can't see and understand God's plan. The test seems to go against the promise of God. Question that we can have in the situation. We know that it is a major test because first, God promised Abraham that through Isaac he would be a father of many nations. Second, in Genesis chapter 9, God condemns murder. He says that you cannot take a life of another person. And at least, how would Abraham tell that to his wife? The 3 days of travel. In Genesis chapter 22, verse 3-5 says that early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out the place God told him about. On the third day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you." How will the nation will be built if Abraham must sacrifice his son? But Abraham said to his servant that he will worship and then we will come back to you. Because he believed that God was able to raise his son from the dead, faith speaks in the midst of the contradiction. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 8 says that by faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into the place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed. And he went out not knowing where he was going. Abraham obeyed God because he knew that God was everything. He remembered what God did for him, how he gave him a child in his old age. When God calls us to do a major test, we have always to remember what he did when the situation seemed little. Genesis chapter 22 verse 6-8. "The fire and the wood are here," said Isaac, "but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide a lamb for the burnt offering, my son." In any situation that we face in the world, we have to always remember that God will provide. The sacrifice. Genesis chapter 22, verse 12. When Abraham was ready to sacrifice his son at the altar, an angel of the Lord called him from heaven. Abraham, Abraham, do not lay your hands on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abraham took what was most precious in his life, his only son, and was ready to offer him to God. But God provided a lamb. Abraham took his son from the altar and sacrificed the lamb in his place. Genesis chapter 22, verse 14 to 18 says that Abraham called the mountain God will provide. And the angel called Abraham for a second time, and he said to Abraham that because you have obeyed God, you will be blessed. Your descendants will be many as the stars in the sky and as the sand in the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the city of their own enemies, and through you all nations of the earth will be blessed. Faith and trust. God asks today, what is your Isaac? What is the thing that stops you from receiving the blessing from God because you are too attached to it? Is it your money, your popularity, your car, your dreams, your friends? Faith and obey. God asks today to bring all to Him and put it on the altar. Give God your whole heart and trust Him to provide all your needs. As Abraham did, we need to be obedient. When we obey, we will see the promise of God. In conclusion, God tested Abraham to see if Abraham really trusted Him. And now He wants to know if we fully trust Him. God will provide. Do you believe that with all your heart? Thank you for listening. God bless you.